Have you ever noticed that in a room full of loud voices, the smartest person is often the one saying the least? We tend to live in a culture that simply cannot stop talking. From non-stop social media feeds to endless office chatter, society constantly rewards the loudest person in the room. We are told that to be successful, we must always speak up, pitch ideas, and dominate the conversation. But what if real power often lies in the exact opposite approach? What if choosing silence isn't a sign of weakness, but a hidden indicator of a highly active, deeply thoughtful mind? There is a fascinating neurological reason why some brains lean toward quiet reflection, and understanding it might completely change how you view the people around you, and even how you view yourself. When we see someone who stays quiet in meetings, parties, or family gatherings, we often make quick, inaccurate assumptions. We might think they are shy, socially anxious, or perhaps they simply have nothing to contribute. Society has conditioned us to view silence as an awkward blank space that needs to be filled immediately. But psychological perspectives suggest that this assumption is often completely wrong. For many highly analytical individuals, silence is not an empty void. It can be a conscious choice, a tool for observation, and a preferred state of mind. They are not necessarily staying quiet because they are afraid to speak, but because their brains are busy doing something much more demanding. And as it turns out, what is happening inside a reflective mind during those quiet moments is far more intense than you might think. To understand why this happens, we have to look inside the human brain. Every time you speak, listen, or process information, your brain uses up mental energy. Neuroscientists often talk about this in terms of cognitive load, which is just a practical way of describing the total amount of mental effort being used at any given moment. A highly analytical brain is often analyzing details, connecting dots, and processing information at a deeper level. Because this deep processing takes up a lot of mental energy, many reflective people prefer silence to avoid feeling overwhelmed. They are naturally selective about what they let into their minds and what they put out into the world. It is a practical way of protecting their mental battery from running completely flat. But mental energy is only half the story, because silence also changes the literal structure of how we think. Think of your brain like a high-performance smartphone. If you open 30 different apps at the same time, the battery drains rapidly and the phone starts to overheat. Constant talking and noisy environments are like opening too many background apps. By choosing silence, a thoughtful person filters out external background noise so they can direct their active attention to what truly matters. They treat their mental energy as a limited, valuable resource, rather than wasting it on superficial noise. This relates to a well-known concept in psychology called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The research suggests that people who are less informed on a topic often overestimate their understanding, while highly competent individuals are keenly aware of the limits of their knowledge, making them far more measured and cautious before they speak. This brings us to one of the greatest hidden strengths of a quiet mind, which is the power of observation. While others are busy planning what they want to say next, a quiet person is actively listening. They are scanning the room, noticing body language, picking up on subtle shifts in tone, and recognizing patterns that most people miss completely. It is like the difference between someone who flashes a flashlight around wildly in the dark, and someone who holds a steady, powerful spotlight on a single spot. By observing first, they gather more facts before forming an opinion. But how exactly does this ability to observe change the way they handle conflict and influence others? Imagine you are at a business meeting where a heated debate breaks out about a complex problem. The loudest people immediately jump in, interrupting each other, and shouting their opinions without fully understanding the core issue. Meanwhile, one person sits quietly at the end of the table, listening intently to every single argument. When they finally speak, they deliver a single, perfectly thought-out sentence that resolves the entire conflict. That is the power of observing before speaking. They do not talk just to hear their own voice. They talk to add real, undeniable value. When we look at the alternative, the psychological cost of constant talking becomes incredibly clear. When a person feels an urgent need to fill every silence with words, they often fall into the trap of impulsive speaking. This means talking before thinking, which frequently leads to misunderstandings, saying things we regret, and making poor decisions based on pure emotion. Constant talkers often reduce their ability to truly listen to others, because their minds are too busy preparing their next response. This creates a barrier to deep connection and prevents them from learning anything new. After all, our working memory can only handle so much, and it is incredibly difficult to truly take in new information while you are actively speaking. But the science goes even deeper than basic conversation habits. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades through the lens of human personality and brain chemistry. For instance, the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung noted that introverted, analytical thinkers naturally focus their energy inward rather than outward. Biological psychology research suggests that individuals who prefer quiet environments may have a natural baseline of cortical arousal that makes them more sensitive to intense outside stimulation. Because their inner world is already highly active, adding loud, chaotic social noise can quickly cause sensory overload. For them, silence isn't just a random preference, it is a necessary tool to maintain focus and mental clarity. This habit of pausing and embracing quiet spaces directly improves the quality of our daily decisions. When you choose silence, you give your brain the time it needs to weigh the pros and cons, consider long-term consequences, and look at a situation from multiple angles. Periods of quiet reflection are associated with activity in what's known as the default mode network, a group of brain regions that becomes more active when we're not focused on the outside world. During these moments, many people connect ideas, reflect on experiences, and generate creative insights. It also provides emotional control. Instead of reacting instantly out of anger or frustration, a quiet mind uses silence to cool down, ensuring that any action taken is logical, fair, and wise. Fortunately, you do not have to be a born genius to benefit from the power of a quiet mind. Anyone can learn to use silence as a tool to upgrade their life. You can start by practicing a simple communication rule. The next time someone finishes speaking to you, count to 3 in your head before you respond. This brief pause changes your reaction from an automatic, emotional impulse into a thoughtful, controlled answer. Another practical step is to schedule intentional quiet time every day, even if it is just 10 minutes in the morning without your phone, television, or music. Let your mind rest in the absolute stillness. Choosing silence does not mean you should never speak up, nor does it mean you should hide your brilliant ideas from the world. It simply means understanding that your words have immense power, and that they carry far more weight when they are chosen with care. It means realizing that you do not need to prove your intelligence by being the loudest person in the room. True confidence is quiet, and true intelligence knows exactly when to listen. As we navigate a chaotic world that seems to get louder and more distracting every single day, maybe the best thing we can do for our mental health and our focus is to take a step back and appreciate the stillness. The next time you find yourself in a quiet moment, do not rush to fill it with noise. Sit with it, observe, and let your mind do what it does best.